Hello party people. Alright, so I'm just going to give a quick overview about the current elemental reactions in Genshin Impact. Now, Dendro is weird. Like, I'll be straight up honest with you. I personally don't like it. Yes, I realize it probably has the most powerful elemental reactions in terms of damage in the game right now. It has dethroned melt and reverse melt and vaporize, for that matter, as well as reverse vaporize. So basically at the top are the first elements. Now we already know what burning is, we just didn't have like a name to it. That's basically Dendro and Pyro. You ever wonder why the grass burns when you use Pyro on the ground? That's because the plants, Dendro, are burning. Now, Hydro and Dendro create bloom, which is basically what happens when the flower grows, for example. Now, this is the one that I'm not so sure about. Supposedly, Hoyo versus Way of balancing and buffing Electro was to combine it with Dendro to create this reaction called Quicken. I don't even know what the fuck Quicken is. Now, so there's some things to keep in mind here, right? So Geo doesn't really have any elemental reactions. The cool thing about Geo is if it reacts with any of the Pyro, Hydro, Electro, or Cryo elements, then it will do Crystallize. And Crystallize is cool because it drops like an elemental like gem or something. It looks like a diamond or something, and it creates a shield for you of that element, which is good because you might be fighting a Hydro monster and you pick up the Hydro shield, which is, you know, protects you from Hydro. Now Anemo, which is basically wind, increases the damage of the core 4 elements, as I call them: Hydro, Pyro, Electro, and Cryo. Anemo and Geo cannot react on their own with each other. Now I know that sounds like common sense, but you'd be surprised. You would think Swirl could possibly stack and with more Swirl, but no, I guess that'd be too powerful. Now, without going into, so like the core 4 elements, they react the way they're supposed to react, in my opinion. They do things that make sense. Now, the thing about Melt is it has 200% increased damage. So you're using Cryo first, then you apply Pyro, you create what used to be the strongest elemental reaction in the game. That's Melt. The weird thing is Reverse Melt. If you use Pyro first and Cryo second, it only creates 150% increased damage. So it doesn't make sense to spam the enemies with Pyro and then use Cryo. That's not going to work as well as spamming Cryo and then using Pyro. Now, Electro was arguably just too weak. Now, it did have reactions, and the interesting thing about Electro is that you can actually use Electro on certain Electro monsters, which doesn't really make sense, but they don't really call it a reaction, so technically it's not even really a reaction. Now, if I honestly had to pick my favorite here, it would be between Swirl and Crystallize. I'll explain why. Now, Crystallize is basically the ultimate defense, but as you all know, there's only one character in the game that can cause Petrify so far. There's only one character that can do that, and like, it's not broken. The monsters last in statue form for a long time, and usually it's long enough just to wipe them out. Now Swirl is it's interesting because like Venti, just like Zhongli is the only one that can use Petrify, Venti is the only character with like that black hole kind of ability. How that's an Nemo, I don't know. I guess the wind sucks him up like a black hole. I have no idea. But can you argue that Kazuha's his elemental skill is basically a black hole towards himself, which isn't always a good thing, mind you, because if you get too many enemies near Kazuha, he's not exactly the tankiest character, since all you're building on him is EM, elemental mastery, excuse me. The Vaporize Pyro first and Hydro second does cause 200% damage as well. And like the other situation, Reverse Vaporize only causes 150% elemental damage. So it makes sense to always apply Cryo or Hydro first, depending on your team build. Or if you can actually do both. I don't know why you would want to do both, but at the same time, I mean, I don't like how it seems like Electro and Dendro are very reliant on each other, because I just don't, the burning reaction, the DPS, not DPS, the damage over time with Pyro and Dendro, I mean, that's great. I just don't think it's enough. I mean, can it be spammed? Can you have AoE with it? Probably. There's no damage multiplier, and it's just like, I don't know, I'm just, I have to see how the Archon Nahida stacks and, complements it, because I think she's the Archon, she's going to be able to mass spread Dendro, which will make all of the possible Dendro reactions possibly occurring at once, and that'd be interesting to see. Personally, I think there is a damage multiplier to Quicken, which is basically Electro and Dendro, or Dendro and Electro. Just because it doesn't say it has one doesn't mean it doesn't have one. Come fight me about it. Anyway, yeah, so these I hope you guys can see that chart. This is what I had to study for a long time, because like when I first started playing this game, I didn't understand reactions. I was sort of just using random ones at certain times, which there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, damage is damage, but I don't think my teams were fully optimized, and I do regret that, especially early on in the game. So like, let's say you had 2 Dendro characters, right? Why you would need 2, I don't know. Let's pretend you do. One of them is Alfheim, how about that? And Nahida. So I assume these 2 can spread the Dendro, right? You would have 2 other Electro characters. Now, to do the Quicken, the double Quicken basically. Now, who are you going to pick? Because immediately my thought goes to Raiden Shogun, who is a battery, and her Elemental Master, I don't know why I keep calling that. Elemental Master EM is supposed to be ridiculous. Her energy recharge as well for the battery part. Now, if you use Raiden Shogun's elemental skill, the R2, it's like a decent sized field of spreading Electro. Just like there's a little mini bomb in front of her. Now, that leaves one spot for the other Electro character, who has to be a DPS. Now, at the moment, the best DPS for Electro, if my memory serves me correctly, I mean, I didn't build them, but probably Sino. I mean, there's no one else, and that's sort of what the problem is. There's no one else. And I understand Dendro is a new element to the game and all, quote unquote new, but it just seems silly to me to be so reliant on a 2-on-2 build. And I mean, if it slaps, it slaps, so like I don't know what else to say about it. Some of these elements I wish stacked on top of each other. Like, why can't you do Pyro and Pyro to create a bigger burning? But I understand that would make the mono teams a little bit too unbalanced. But yeah, so this is my problem with Dendro. I mean, if I want to run C6 Archons, then I have to do what I gotta do. But it just seems like this was hastily put together. I don't know why I feel that way. It seems like a lot of this wasn't thought through. Like, why exactly does Dendro not react with cryo? Why does plants not react with ice? Water makes plants grow, hydro and Dendro. So why wouldn't it freeze, like create some sort of famine kind of thing, you know what I mean? But I don't know. I mean, I thought ice and plants would mix well, but they don't, so there's nothing we can do about that. Dendro cannot mix with Anemo, the swirl, because what would it do? Theoretically, what would swirl and Dendro do together? And you know, the way swirl and crystallize are is they don't react with themselves or a lot of other elements. So I hope you guys gathered some information here. The website that I'm using for this little chart thing is genshin-impact.fandom.com. So genshin-impact-fandom.com with a hyphen in the game name. It's a wiki, and it is elemental_reaction. So you guys can look that up if you want. Well, that's all I got. I'm probably gonna do some farming right now. Gotta prepare for that Nahida drop. Alright, thanks for watching, guys. Take care of yourselves and each other.